wait a minute, Jack. This is a friendly celebration.
I don't much like the way you celebrate.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, Don. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Had a good week?
So far.
Good.
Yeah.
Back in town?
Back in town. I'm working on my the trim on the roof around the porches. I've got all the roof done.
All right. Good for you.
Working on the porches now.
Good for you. So I want to let you know, I listened to some of your radio show this week.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And it was interesting. You added some color to the story you told us before about your family member that was a B-52 pilot.
Oh.
So I looked at that whole thing up, and boy, it's a there's a lot of stuff about it, and I didn't know if you knew it or not. They actually had 4 hydrogen bombs on board.
Yeah. 4 hydrogen nuclear
not atomic bombs. They had hydrogen bombs, and when the 3, one went in the ocean, 3 of them went on into the land, and it said that 2 of the 3, the conventional explosive actually went off and spread plutonium, and they're still cleaning it up.
Yeah.
And Spain is still mad at us for not doing a good cleanup job, I guess. I don't know.
I guess. Oh, really? They're still
and
mad,
there's some
huh?
and there's some Air Force veterans, some elder guys that helped do some of the investigating and were there on site, and now they've got some medical problems, and they've been suing the VA because they won't give them benefits. So there's
really?
there's a lot of spiders,
still
a lot
crawling
of
around over
web.
that thing, huh?
Yeah. Anyway, it was very interesting. I couldn't really find an Air Force investigation report. Really?
Okay.
And I'm sure there is one because they put out report for everything. But
there was a lady that wrote a book about it called "The Day We Lost the Hydrogen Bomb."
Oh, okay. Maybe she says something in there. I know you said, and you talked it over with Mom on the radio show.
Yeah.
Okay. And
now she
mentioned that the tail broke off the B-52 just before the accident.
Well, that's her interpretation, I think. But
yeah,
I can remember Charles, her second husband. He was the senior officer on board.
Right.
But as I said in the thing, and I think, I don't know, maybe you confirmed it. I don't think he was flying the plane at the time.
No, he was the, I don't know what they call it. He was the chief instructor pilot.
Okay.
And he was a captain, it said, and a major was flying the airplane.
Oh, really?
And the co-pilot was a lieutenant. So in the video notes and some
Okay.
links and stuff, and I'll send it to you guys because it's really a lot of information. So
Yeah, pretty interesting.
anyway, welcome,
Thank
Jeff. How are you? We were talking about Ken's family member that was a B-52 pilot in the 60s.
Oh, wow.
And
Don tuned in and listened to my radio show yesterday, Tuesday morning,
Oh,
apparently.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, Ken's hosts the radio show on Tuesday morning in Prescott. So
Oh, that's really
um,
cool.
yeah. So anyway, I'll let me get hello,
Well,
Paul.
I got all
Hey.
people riled up this week being on James T. Harris. He's getting all these emails.
Really? Yeah, I'm gonna go
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Okay. So since you have the limited time, Jeff, why don't you start off with your rant? And if you want to continue from your rant on James T. If it was a rant, you could do it here too.
Well, it's a twofold rant then. The reason, I was on James T. Harris talking about the basically what's going on in front of the Supreme Court Wednesday, the oral arguments about Trump's tariffs. And there's a certain question. So, if you go through a series of questions, I think it, kind of the answers become apparent. And a lot of people don't like where I'm headed here, but I think it's going to be very interesting when you listen to what the court is asking the plaintiffs and defendants on the tariffs. But number one, where does the power to impose tariffs lie? And obviously it's Article 1, Section 8 with the legislative branch. That's where it originally lies. Number two, can any or all of those powers be delegated? And we know at least some of those powers can be delegated because presidents in the past have used unilateral powers from the executive branch to impose tariffs on a limited scale. Okay, so we do know some can be, but can all be delegated? And I have a hard time having a hard time saying that all of them can be delegated because can the legislative branch delegate its powers? And you have to understand that is one of the greatest powers that the federal government was given by the states in Article 1, Section 8, which is the section that gives most of the powers to the federal government in the legislative branch, is in that, and it's number one power. So under the Great Questions doctrine, I doubt it can delegate all of its powers there. And then number three is, does the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, under its unusual and extraordinary threat to the United States, give the president power to do what he's done? And, the next question would be, do we want a potential future Democrat president to be able to invoke these emergency powers and unilaterally assume vast sweeping powers that are delegated to Congress? And I'm also wanted to discuss how would Clarence Thomas react. Now, based on his actions on the questioning, I think he's leaning towards voting with the Trump administration because Clarence Thomas has a history of voting with executive powers when it comes to foreign relations. The problem is that tariffs are not just a foreign relation issue, which is what the government is arguing in front of the Supreme Court. It also has to do with the power of taxation because it does affect people in this country. And one way or the other, it is a tax. So the people importing the duties, people don't understand this, I don't think, guys, that when tariffs are imposed, it's not the foreign nation that pays it. It's the company or individual or people that are importing the goods that pay the tariff. Okay. And so that's the way these tariffs get done. So Clarence Thomas has a history of granting and being deferential to the executive branch when it comes to foreign relations, but he's very guarded when it comes to the taxing powers of wanting Congress to have that. So I'm going to be very interested to see what happens. However, based on Amy Coney Barrett and others of the justices, including the three liberal judges, I really think this is going to come down to 5-4 against Trump. And what people are saying is that's going to be a disaster, which it will if the Supreme Court rules them immediately null and void. But I think the Supreme Court should be smart enough to understand that there's gray area here and give the executive and legislative branches 6 months, a time period to work this out, to understand where the powers lie and make this happen. And that is yet another reason why the filibuster needs to be, abolished. Because if the filibuster doesn't get abolished, then that'll be another place where the Democrats, the tail will wag the dog and try to thwart Trump's ability and Congress's ability to impose those tariffs. So that is my rant. Is I'm not sure if the Supreme Court rules that his actions are constitutional. That is a short-term win for the country, but I believe a long-term loss. Because if one of the greatest powers Congress or legislative branch have been granted can be universally and wholly delegated to the president with legislation that wasn't intended to do that. I mean, there's no question the intended legislation was not intended to do that. It'll be very scary. On the other hand, if they deem it unconstitutional and everything's null and void, that is very scary. And that's why I'm saying the split the baby route, if it is unconstitutional, to give Congress and the president time to work these things out. And so that's my one rant of the day. And my second rant is totally separate, but it has to do with Tucker Carlson, who I have loved, who I have listened to, who I thought was a leading voice in Patriot in America. But even when he interviewed Ted Cruz and it was kind of an ambush, I listened to him, I took him seriously, and I didn't think it was a good thing for a friend to do to another friend. But when he recently came out with the interview, and last week or 2 weeks ago, of Nick Fuentes, who quite frankly is just not a good human being from what I've heard from him. And he softballed Nick Fuentes. And it seems that with Tucker these days, anybody who is against, or anybody who is pro-Israel and pro-America helping Israel is his enemy all of a sudden. And anybody who is anti-helping Israel, and I'm not just saying anti-Israel, or I'm not even saying anti-Jewish, but anybody who stands on one side of that is all of a sudden his ally. And anybody who's on the other side of that all of a sudden is a warmonger and some of the worst people in the world. And I just don't find that he's looking for common ground. Instead, he's trying to draw absolute lines. And as Yoda said, if you do that, you're probably not on the right track in many cases. So he's definitely burned some bridges with me, unfortunately. And I hope he kind of gets his wits about him and changes. But we not only see that from Tucker Carlson, but from others on the right who don't seem to understand. Like if you impose a question, why does a country of 9-10 million have such a sway on the United States and this, that, and the other? You really don't understand the history of Western civilization and the world. And I'm not saying everything Israel does is right. I am not saying that everything the Palestinians do is wrong. But I am saying that if that is your one litmus test, if you are pro-America or pro-Trump or America first, that you're probably off. And so if he would have treated Nick Fuentes the same way he treated Ted Cruz, he would have not have lost me. But when you get somebody like Nick Fuentes in there and you softball, and he didn't follow up with some questions that were just easy questions to follow up on, I have a problem with that. And so he's lost a lot of credibility with me, and I think he's probably lost a lot of credibility with others. So those are my two rants for today.
Okay. Good job, Jeff. Who wants to go next? Ken? Paul?
I'll
Go,
leap
Paul.
into this. I'll leap into this. Um, yeah, I don't really have a hard rant except about New York City. That just blows my mind that the education system has gotten so bad in this country that people think that Mem Danny is going to be good for the city. That they believe his BS that he's going to get free buses and rent freezes and all this kind of stuff. And this all seems to me to go back to the education system. I was taught, and I'm sure most of us here were, as in our civics classes, how bad communism was. In fact, I used to wonder sometimes if all those pictures of the empty store shelves and the people standing in line for food was not propaganda, because I just couldn't believe that a government could be so bad that it could destroy the food supplies of people. And then, of course, as I grew up, I got to the point where I understood where they shipped all the grain out of the Ukraine and starved the Ukrainians to death to feed the Russians because they couldn't come up with their 5-year plan level of production for the wheat. And I don't think all the potatoes went to vodka. So there wasn't enough potatoes to do that either. So I guess that's my rant is we've got to get back to educating our youth instead of indoctrinating them, and get them up to speed on what is and what isn't a good form of government. Now, I'm not saying our government is the best. I think it's designed the best. It's just not being executed the best. Anytime you put human beings into a system, it's going to have flaws, and greed and corruption are going to be the two biggest flaws that I can see. Because when it gets right down to things like building jet airplanes, we can do that, and we can do that effectively, if not efficiently, but we can do it. But keeping people's hands out of the public till seems to be a real trick that I don't think any country has yet figured out how to do, even with all the safeguards and whatever. So that's my rant: is education for the masses, with real education and true learning.
Okay, Ken, you're up.
Wow. I am pretty empty today. I don't have much of a rant other than to maybe say that I think the elections that have occurred in New Jersey, New York, and Virginia ought to remind us that the pendulum can tilt back and forth pretty quickly. And we can't assume, as conservatives, Republicans, however you want to characterize ourselves, that, we won the last presidential election. We have the House and the Senate. And so everything from here on out is going to be great. We have to be smart about what we do, because it can teeter back in the other direction very quickly. And it floors me that the Republican leadership of Congress is basically saying, no, we got to hold on to the filibuster, because if we go back into the minority, we have to be able to kind of hold up things against the Democrats someday. And so we can't deny them that right this time. And I say BS. We have got to govern. We have got to govern and do the things that we have with the victory that we just won. Now, we can't go crazy. We can't do things unconstitutionally. And I think, Jeff's already noted that we're already tickling the tiger on some things as to whether, the executive can act unilaterally on something that the Constitution essentially or just fundamentally delegates to the legislative branch. But holding back on governing today on the argument that, well, if we do that, we might be disadvantaged in the future someday because we won't be able to stop something with the filibuster with 47 of us or for 43 or whatever. That is total baloney, in my opinion. Let's get the job done now And there's nothing in the Constitution that says 41 senators in the U.S. Senate can hold up the whole works.
Ken, let me
Just
add,
a rule.
I wholeheartedly agree. And two things add to this. If Trump's saying it's an emergency and that's why he needs emergency powers, again, it's like trying to take your family member to the hospital and driving 20 miles under the speed limit. Is it really an emergency? So if he's saying it's an emergency and the Senate is clipping its own wings, is it really an emergency? That's number one. And two, what is the greater threat? The chance in the future that we will have a Democrat president, which will surely come, and then we have no legs to stand on when it comes to him or her usurping powers that should be Congress related and becoming a king that we say that we don't want? Or is that the greater risk, or them controlling the presidency and both houses? Okay, I think it's the former. And if we get rid of the filibuster, there is nothing to say that we can't pass some laws. And I know these laws could be overturned without the filibuster, but it would make it harder to do so. Saying that you need a 60 or two-third majority vote to have a new state, or a two-third majority to increase the number of Supreme Court representatives. So these things can all be done through the legislative branch. There is no fail-safe system in a republic like we have. There's danger, and that's part of what we do, and it's why freedom is not a spectator sport.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be a spectator sport for Congress either. They're supposed to be involved, not from laws passed in 1977, like the one Trump is relying on. They're supposed to be engaged right now. None of these things, like bombing these Venezuelan ships or sending troops into Portland, should be based on laws that are, ancient. The Congress can get involved right now. They're not doing it. They're asleep at the wheel. And it kind of is getting me a little bit upset at people's priorities here.
Well, it
Jeff,
seems to me, it's my understanding. I'm sorry, Paul, but
Go ahead.
while we're on this, it's my understanding that didn't the Senate already do a carve out to say that the filibuster does not apply to the confirmation of federal judges?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
in this case, I would say, no, don't blow. If you don't want to blow up the whole filibuster, that's fine. Just adopt a Senate law that says, in the event that a government shutdown exceeds 30 days or whatever, I mean, carve out a very narrow situation.
Very good.
That says, in this situation, just like we did for the confirmation of judges, in this narrow situation, the filibuster is not effective, and let's get going. You don't have to blow up the whole thing to deal with what you got to do today.
The one law they could pass that would end this and end all future shutdowns is that no elected official will get a paycheck or back pay when the government is shut down, period. And they shouldn't. They'd all be in there.
Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say before I was so rudely interrupted. Just kidding, Ken. This might be a good argument for term limits, because let's face it. Why has the EPA been given all of the effect of a military police organization? You dig a hole in your yard, they come and find you and put you in jail. And I figure anything they can put you in jail for has got to be a law. Now, they can call it a regulation, but if I'm going to jail, I should have broken a law, not a regulation. Okay, the second thing is, so we're looking at term limits. If politicians didn't have, like Nancy Pelosi says she's not going to run again for the 11,000th time. And if she hadn't had 20 or 50 or 40 years, whatever it was, of continuing opportunities to work through the the trading floor on the Wall Street stock exchange and make fortunes and fortunes and fortunes, so that she has a $20,000 refrigerator and 700 different kinds of Ben and Jerry's ice cream. if she didn't have a lifetime career to cover, she might be willing to make some laws that affect the country positively. And that's my feeling on that. So I feel like there's a term limit section in this whole thing. But I agree with Ken on the limited filibuster kill. Just make it, you can't do this under these circumstances, because this is ridiculous. I mean, I'm fortunately I'm not affected because I don't make any money, so I don't have to have any income. But there are people out there that just, as of November 1st, there's no groceries, there's no money in the bank, there's no EBT card. They're and the food banks are just dying right now. They're being sucked dry. So this is a terrible thing. It really is, and it needs to be addressed. And I think what Ken's suggesting might be a real benefit to the American people. And if the Republicans can push it, it can take the heat off of them for the accusation that this is their problem, that this is their fault, when it's really not their fault. So
I'll go ahead and give my rant now. I have kind of a combo rant based on your rants. So the first thing I want to rant about is, it's interesting to me how a guy like Chief Justice Roberts can sit up on his high horse, okay, when he's lost total control of the federal judiciary right now. The district judges are out of control, and the Supreme Court is not doing anything about it, and neither is Congress. But just Roberts sits up there, and then he talks out one side of his mouth. When I heard some of the testimony yesterday, and he says, we don't want to get involved in making decisions about foreign policy. Well, that's what Trump's tariffs are all about. In President Trump's mind, it is foreign policy. That's why he's doing it, because other countries around the world are taking advantage of us with their tariffs, and he's using it to lock them out of that. Okay, and so far that's been successful in most cases. But Roberts, do you remember when he finally approved Obamacare? Do you remember what that was based on? It was based on that fine, right? And he wouldn't say it was a tax, right?
No, he did say it. Did he say it was a tax?
Yeah, he said, he interpreted that as a tax.
Right.
So Obamacare was okay because they were going to tax people if they didn't buy the insurance, right?
Right.
Now all of a sudden he's all worried about tariffs and taxes, and tariffs are taxes, and come on. I mean, seriously, we've got to have smarter people, and they've got to have better arguments than what they're giving us, right? And the other thing I want to talk about is the elections in Virginia, New Jersey, and New York. And the mainstream media is pushing so hard to make it the end of the world for Republicans, that this is a blue wave that's going to destroy Republicans and destroy Trump. And it's so phony, it's laughable, because nobody in their right mind believed we were going to win any of those elections. Trump didn't even endorse the gal that ran for governor in Virginia. He didn't endorse her. He said she was a good person, but he did not endorse her. So that didn't help her any. And there was some reason for that. I don't know what it is, but even up to the last minute, he never endorsed her. Okay. And those elections just didn't mean that much. It just means those three blue states are just going to become bigger hellholes than they are now, right? They're just going to get worse. New Jersey, 250,000 Republicans have moved out of New Jersey. You're not going to win an election in New Jersey if you're a Republican with that many people leaving the state. It's impossible, right? That's 250,000 people. Those are votes, right? So they said if they'd had the conditions the last time, the same guy ran last time, he would have won. But those people are gone now. So You know,
Well,
so I
I
just
think
don't think, I think Ken's right. We need to have our antenna up. We got to be careful. We can't be stupid. And I think right now, John Thune is being stupid. He is trying to make a deal now he's negotiating with the Democrats. And I don't know what it's all about, but they're talking about voting on some deal on Friday. Okay. He should not be doing any of that. He should be carving out this filibuster, like Ken said, which I think is a great idea, a brilliant idea, and forget about negotiating with these people because we said we wouldn't negotiate with them. And Trump said he wouldn't negotiate with them. So if Thune and the House is not going to go back and vote on anything that the Senate comes up with, they're just not. You know, they're not going to change their mind about the CR. So they can extend the CR because it only went till November 21st. And now here we are. What are we at now? November 8th, 7th, 6th. So you've only got 2 weeks till the CR runs out anyway. So you'll have to probably have another vote on the CR to put a different date on it. And most Republicans don't want to go beyond January 1st. They'll go to December 31st, but not beyond that for a CR because they want to get back to regular order, you know. And there are 12 bills that normally that's the way you create the budget is the 12 different bills. And they've worked hard and they've gotten all those bills out of committee and they're ready to press on. So I don't know what Thune's thinking, but I think he's just totally wrong, totally off base. And why these senators get so stuck on their rules, it's just incredible. You know, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, just Don, remember back the Democrats thought about deep sixing the filibuster rule
Oh yeah, they
also,
did. They voted on it, and
and they
Sinema
voted on it,
and
and it
Manchin voted
only
against it.
well, it only didn't pass because of a couple, Sinema
Yeah,
and Manchin,
and
a
Manchin,
couple of
yeah,
the moderate Democrats
right.
in the Senate.
And they're
My
gone now.
point is, without moderate Democrats in the Senate, and
Yeah,
there are none,
yeah, they're
that next
gone now.
time they have power, it's going anyway.
That's right.
So we're going to look back at this. We've had the longest government shutdown in history, and the Republicans have cover. If they're looking for political cover, they have it.
Yeah,
And whether they select what they want to, to me, I think Ken, like they've done in the past, saying we're not going to have the filibuster in certain areas. It's going the way of the dodo bird the next time the Democrats are in, and we're
mhm,
going to look back at this as a lost opportunity because not only are we not going to govern, but we as Republicans are going to be held to account that we were okay with an executive taking extraordinary powers under an emergency clause that wasn't necessarily meant to be there, and we're going to have no legs to stand on when that's reversed. So this is a lose lose for Republicans. And I'd rather at least take a win, at least one win.
yeah, exactly. Can't disagree with that. So listen, I want to ask you guys, what do you think about what do you think about the shutdown? I mean, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, it looks to me like Thune has got himself backed in a corner now because he's got the president pushing him hard to get rid of the filibuster, and now he's apparently got some kind of negotiate. Somebody has talked him into negotiating with the other side and putting something together. So, and I don't think that's going to fly with the House of Representatives or with a lot of the senators. So, um, whatever they agree on, it'll never pass. Tupperville won't sign up to that. Tupperville wants to get rid of the filibuster. He's already said that. So,
Guys,
what
I'm
do you
going to
guys
have to
think?
run. I'm going to
Yeah,
have to run, so maybe let me sneak in and I've got to give a talk in just a little bit.
go ahead,
But
John.
I think we're going to learn a couple things. One, if there's any airplane accidents during this time, it is going to be you know what to pay for
Yeah,
somebody,
yeah,
okay, because of what's going on. That's number one, and that's the extreme of a government shutdown. But on the other hand, many people are recognizing, hey, maybe we don't need all these government employees because it's not affecting me that much. you know, depending if you travel or not. And so I think it's also a good excuse to start cutting in some areas that we probably should be. And so I think it's a two-handed sword, weapon here that could cut both ways. But either way, it gives us, it's not working. We know something's broken and we got to figure out a way to solve it. There's an easy way to solve it. And it baffles my mind why the Republican leadership is not taking advantage of that.
Jeff,
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
I'd like to argue with you, but I've watched the Republican leadership trip over themselves for years.
Yeah.
They seem to find the deepest hole they can get near and fall in it. It's scary.
Hey, appreciate each one of you guys.
Okay,
You too.
You take care, and thanks for joining us. So, so what do you think, Ken? Where do you think we're going now?
Well,
Put on your Arizona legislature hat and give us an off ramp.
As I told you last week, or maybe 2 weeks before,
Yeah.
I happened to be in a meeting with the chief of staff for one of our Republican congressmen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was his DC chief of staff or it was his Arizona chief of staff. I think it's his Arizona chief of staff. But he told the group that I was at lunch with that the Republicans will cave in to the Democrats. And that just it sickened the whole room, frankly, but it sickens me. I mean, I wish I had John Thune's cell number or somebody, because I think a narrow carve out to set aside the filibuster in a government shutdown that exceeds 30 days or, something that would get us out of where we're in now without just blowing the whole thing completely wide open down the.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree with you. I think the Democrats are going to, without the Senemas and the Mansions, the next time, when they control the Senate again, even if it's 51-50, 49, it's gone. Because they will not give us the same deference that we seem to be giving them. And I'm hearing Johnson and Thune both say, well, we got to keep this because when we're in the minority someday in the future, we're going to wish we had the ability to hold something up with 42 people. And I think that's just dumb as a stump.
Yeah. I think that comes from Republicans when they're not in the majority. A lot of Republicans, they get used to being the minority, and so and that tool comes to mind to them when they're in the minority. But basically, they don't know how to govern. Our guys have never really learned how to govern when they're in the majority, right? To play, to play chess and not checkers with the other side, right? And so,
well,
I hope that's not true.
I had to learn how to do that in a hurry when I was president of the Senate.
Yeah, right.
And Janet Napolitano was the governor of this state.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Republicans controlled the House and the Senate, but we had to negotiate some pretty important things, and I think we did a good job. She got some things that she wanted, but we got some. I mean, we did the largest tax cut in the history of the state of Arizona, and got it signed by a Democrat governor.
Right.
But I had Republicans in this state who hated me and called me a rhino 15 years ago because I got 4 budgets done with Napolitano for 4 years. And when you take the far right side of the party that says, don't ever negotiate, don't ever compromise, don't ever do anything. And then got the far left of the party that says, compromise no matter what and do whatever you have to do to get something done. And the real core of the Republican Party in the middle gets so small that is dangerous. You're right. We don't know how to govern because we're used to either being in the minority or deferring to the minority uh, to hold things up like they are right now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, and I understand Paul's frustration with leadership in general because he's right. We've made so many dumb mistakes. Even when you have some very intelligent people telling you to do something else, even when you have the president of the United States telling you to do something else, right? Showing you the roadmap to success the next 3 years, and President Trump knows exactly how evil those people are and what they're capable of, right? If they get back in power. So you just can't let that happen. So I don't know. I don't know what's going through Thune's mind. The Senate has always been the side of Congress that drives me crazy because the way they defend each other when they do things wrong, when one of them makes a serious mistake, I mean, to sit around and watch McCain and Lindsey Graham praising Joe Biden all the time made me sick. You know, there was no bigger liar in the U.S. Senate than Joe Biden. He never told the truth in his life. And Lindsey and John McCain, oh, he's a real nice guy. He's just great, right? And I say, yeah, oh yeah. So I I understand that frustration on Paul's side because he's on Paul's point of view because it is frustrating to see our guys. So what can we do to give our audience some optimism about where we're going forward here, right? We don't
Wow.
we don't want I don't want them to think that the elections back in the eastern United States really are. I really don't think that's going to have much to do with anything other than on the Democrat side they think they've won something big and the mainstream media is pushing that, right? But I don't think that really means anything. It's like Ron DeSantis said, right? In Florida, when before we won the election, the first time he won office, they had 300,000 more Democrats than Republicans registered in the state, right? And now that this mass migration has taken place within the United States, people voting with their feet, right? Florida has 1,300,000 more Republicans registered now. So the majority of people that we've gotten from these blue states are not Democrats; they're Republicans. And I don't know where the Democrats are going. I have a lot of fear that they might be going to Tucson. that might be their refuge, right?
Well, we've had both aspects of in migration from other states affect Arizona in both ways. 20 years ago, Republicans had a 7% advantage in voter registration over Democrats. Some of the in-migration that happened to Arizona from other states pushed that down to 3. That got down as low as a 3% advantage, but it's now back to 7.
Okay.
And I didn't mean to imply by my earlier comments that the 3 elections in Virginia, New York, and New Jersey were a harbinger of
Sure.
doom for the Republicans in
Understand.
26 or 28.
I didn't take your comments that way, Ken. So.
Good. As I said earlier on our program, I do like to remind Republicans that the Trump victory in 24 was because of, we took all the swing states. Well, there were 3 swing states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, that those 3 states combined, which is 42 electoral votes in those 3 states combined. He only won those states by about 240,000 votes combined.
Yeah.
And so it only takes a little, half of that to change their mind. And you can lose 3 of those 7 swing states in a hurry.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so that's the point that I want people to,
Right.
and that's why I think it's so obvious that when we do have the presidency, the House, and the Senate, we got to govern. We got to get stuff done.
Right, right. Yeah, you gotta pass legislation. You gotta sell President Trump's agenda. You gotta,
Well, you got to
put
get
his
back to normal.
EOs, put his EOs into legislation, and let's go, let's rock, right?
You got to get back to normal order. You got to do the budget
Yeah.
the right way instead of these just continuing resolutions for year upon year upon year, like they've been
hmm
doing.
I
Um,
think I think the total CRs. I heard this number, and I don't know if you guys have heard this. I've heard it's up to 54.
I wouldn't doubt
50.
it. I've been hearing CRs since I've been an adult.
Can you imagine that? 54 consecutive CRs. I mean, come on.
Well, it's,
Nobody could be
Congress
happy with that.
Congress is abdicated so much of their responsibility over time. They don't want to do anything that would jeopardize their reelection.
Yeah.
My cousin told me many years ago, a politician's only job is to get reelected. And I think I may have mentioned this on this particular program that when Martha McSally got elected the first time to the House, she went up to Washington, and the first thing she did was go to a class on letter writing, how to solicit funds. Now, not what to do in the Constitution, no classes on the Constitution or the law or anything like that. They took a woman who had no political experience and taught her how to write fundraising letters. And that was her indoctrination into the thing. Now, as it turned out, the recount took Barbara and they swapped places and she came back here. But I thought that was just so discouraging that one of our elected representatives, their highest priority was making money. Just make money, get more money. And now theoretically, what does that do? Well, that puts you in a position to get reelected. And I kind of admit that you can't do anything for your constituents if you're not reelected. That's true. But if you're not doing anything for your constituents anyway, what's the value? So,
Good point.
I agree.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know that for example, the House. This is not an election year for the House, and so this is the year that you really need to jump in and make hay, right? And you put in a lot of good legislation and get things passed, and let that evolve over time until next year when you are running again for election in 26, and you can stand up on stage in front of your constituents and say, look what we did. We did the big beautiful bill, and we did all this to help Trump's agenda, and we ended
yes,
the
sir.
government shutdown, and but yeah, they're just spinning their wheels now, and it'll be a shame if they don't get their act together.
Yeah, it is a shame if they don't get their act together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
So what else we got going on this week, guys? What
let's
other
see.
any local news that you heard about anything going on locally or local government or locally that's
Well, there's an election in Tucson for the city council, and the two Republicans that I know of were running, both lost. I think it was a Don Quixote-ics type of tilting with windmills to run for city of Tucson council
Oh, yeah.
in the city of Tucson.
yeah, it's just like running back in New Jersey and Virginia and New York. I
Yeah.
mean, come on.
But
Yeah, it's sad.
it was hopeful, but it was not realistic. And
Yeah.
so the
And
city
they've
will
got
continue.
they've got the rules against, when the wards, you can vote for your person in your ward individually, but when it comes down to the election, all the wards get the vote,
Right.
for your ward guy, and the other 5 wards aren't going to vote for the 6th ward guy if he's a Republican. So
Right.
you
Right.
can't win, And for some reason, the Arizona Supreme Court upheld that way to do things. So I never did understand that either. But I have to ask Shauna Bullock's husband someday if I ever get to talk to him about that. Clint Bullock, see how that happened, right? Because you remember that went to the Arizona Supreme Court. And
Now, I'm not recalling. I thought there were 6 wards in Tucson,
yeah,
and the citizens in each ward voted for their city council member from that ward. What is the wards joining together to vote for the 5th one or
all
6th one?
yeah, all of the war when you go into your final election, Democrat versus Republican, right? All of your wards vote on each one. So it's not
So
just
the ward by ward voting is only in the primary?
right. Yeah. Yeah. So all the wards, you're in the Republican one. I think Ward 6 is a Republican ward in Tucson, if I remember right, the east side.
I
And
think
and the other 5 bunch get the vote for your against you, right? So
yeah.
you'll never overcome that, right? Because they just vote flat Democrat. And so you end up with all Democrats on the city council. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it's weird.
I didn't realize that they used the ward voting only for the primaries, but a citywide voting in the general.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
And
seems uh, that
it's
seems
it
odd
is
to me.
bizarre. It's sort of like the filibuster rule. they, they they filibuster Republicans out of the city council, right? With their little trick rule there. So anything else going on? You guys
Well, I saw that Trump came out and endorsed Mark Lamb
oh good,
in
yeah. Yeah, he's
in
running
that.
for who's is he running for Andy Biggs's seat?
Yeah, he's running to replace
Okay.
Andy Biggs, and I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of Mark Lamb, but I have heard some things behind the scenes that he might be a little more propped up and pushed into the race by some elements within the Republican Party that I struggle
That you
with.
disagree with. Yeah.
Um, I heard that he had committed to one of the other guys, Travis Grantham, that was in the race already, that he would not run against Travis. Travis has been a good legislator in the Arizona legislature. Um, and it was between him and Jay Feely, the former kicker for the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Um, but then I heard that even though Lamb had promised um, Grantham that he wouldn't run against him, he suddenly got pushed into the race because this group was mad at Grantham for some reason. And not only did they push him in, but they got Trump's endorsement. So I think that's going to go heavily. That's going to be hard for either Feely or Grantham to overcome Lamb's advantage now.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
as far as Mark Lamb, I'm a big fan.
Good.
Um,
Yeah.
not a fan of this group that might have pushed him in the race the way that happened. But
Yeah, and for the audience, the Mark Lamb was a former sheriff of Pinal County, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. So what about what's the latest on Kimberly Yee, Ken? Is she still going
she
to
is
run for
still announced.
superintendent?
Yeah, she's still announced as a candidate for superintendent of public instruction against Tom Horn, who is running for a second 4-year term in that spot.
Right.
But that same group that we think might have pushed Lamb into that race very openly is taking credit for putting Kimberly Yee into that race. So I'm not.
Yeah.
Again, I'm usually a huge Kimberly Yee fan,
Yeah.
and am personally, but
Yeah.
the
I
reason
thought.
the reason that they're saying that she needs to be our choice instead of Tom Horn, I struggle with immensely. So
Yeah, you told us
um,
about that story. Yeah.
yeah,
So spending that money is
yeah,
foolishly is.
Tom just came out and said that there should be some guardrails to make sure that if people get those dollars for their
Yes.
education ESA account,
Yeah.
education
Yeah.
scholarship, that
Yeah.
they have to be spent on education. And this group apparently doesn't even like that idea, which I don't understand.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's just to me, it's the same thing as as the SNAP program, right?
Yeah.
There's so much fraud involved, um, and I see they're fining. I think it was California. The biggest offenders were California, Colorado, New York, and one other state that they were spending. The state was spending federal Medicaid dollars on illegals, which is against the law, right? You can spend state Medicaid dollars on illegals. That's your money, but you can't spend federal Medicaid dollars. And so they caught them, and supposedly I heard Colorado's in a severe, my home state, unfortunately. I feel sorry for those people now, but they got a tremendous deficit, and they don't know how they're going to cut,
Wow.
to meet their deficit, and they're supposed to be cutting Medicaid by $1.5 billion from $3 billion. So
That's a
that
big cut.
who's going to get covered for what? you're going you're going to have Medicaid, but what will you get for it, right?
Hmm.
You probably won't
Wow.
even get a physical exam every year, let alone anything else. So what's happening now, of course, is all of the medical care is going to the emergency rooms, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to cover them in the emergency room, you know.
Every
So
decision has its consequences,
yeah, isn't
and
that right? Yeah,
as Paul's mentioned, when you don't do a good job of governing, you
yeah.
end up allowing a mishmash of rules and regulations to govern
Mhm.
us instead of well thought out laws that we elected people to think about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Do you agree with that, Paul?
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned that. I got a letter from Juan Ciscomani the other day. I send him one at least once a week from the DAV or somebody else, just to get a law. Of course, he's very pro veterans. That's good.
Is he your
Uh,
congressman?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and so usually I get a nice thing back from him. Uh, when I send the same letters, similar letters to Gallego and the fat guy,
Oh, right.
um,
Kelly?
I get these responses back. The first paragraph is in 10-point type that says, "As your savior and hero, Kelly," da da da. Then the type changes to address my letter, but it doesn't address my letter.
Not at all. That
just
that
it
letter
just
you sent to me didn't address anything you wrote about.
Yeah. And then and then at the end it has the paragraph. It's an honor serving you and da 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 da.
Oh man.
And
Yeah, I
I
know.
wish he,
Yeah.
I just wish he would tell me the truth, Paul. Your ideas are very patriotic, and I don't deal in that. You know
Yeah.
that would make me
Yeah.
feel better than what he does send. But anyway,
That was that reply was terrible. It was embarrassing.
it was. Oh, and then
Yeah.
and then I got one from Gallego that said, as a member of a co-equal branch of the government. And I wrote him back and I said, "You dumbass." I said, "You are not in the co-equal branch of the government. You're in the superior branch of the government. Act like it."
Yeah. Yeah.
He doesn't even know how our Constitution works. It's just
No.
so discouraging. But this thing from Ciscomani was along the same lines, but it was just so mealy mouth.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the guy that was on the New York commuter train, and
Yeah.
he noticed a roach going through the dining car. So he wrote a letter to the train company, and a couple of days later, he got back a really nice letter on the president's letterhead and all this kind of stuff. And it said, "Dear Mr. Jones, we are so pleased that you took the time to tell us about this problem on the dining car of the Cincinnati commuter." And he said, "We're looking into this. We have our whole team working on this and all that kind of stuff." And he was about to throw the envelope away when a little yellow Post-it note fell out and it said, "Send this guy the bug letter." You know,
We're talking auto pen here, right?
yeah, the whole
I,
letter was
I
auto.
really I really think those letters, I mean, I'm sure a lot of congressmen and senators, they're very insincere and they just send the auto pen letter, the general, well, thanks for writing and we're trying to do this and that. We're doing good. And we appreciate your concern and yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
A lot of them probably do that. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway,
Before we leave the air, I want to ask you guys, what do you think about, are we getting, anything out of these committees, these dog and pony shows? And it doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat. Do they ever do anything to correct anything or fix anything? Or, when you had committees in the state legislature, Ken, and I know you do the same thing in the state, right, to investigate things. Did you ever get solutions out of those committees, or does that turn into legislation, or does it turn into legal action, or?
I think it depends on whether you're talking about standing committees, that legislation has to go through a standing committee in order to then get to the entire body, the floor of the Senate or the House. Those committees are very important because the chairs of those committees can not schedule, bills to be heard in committee. And if it's not heard in committee, it doesn't get heard on the floor of the body.
Right.
If you're talking special committees that are set up during when they're not in session to study this or study that, some ideas can come of that. And usually it's a bill the next year that says a study committee thinks we should do this or whatever. But unless you affect actual laws in the state or the federal government, no, committees are not real powerful. But it gives people a podium to beat their chest about and say that they did this. And
I'm referring to this Arctic frost thing where these senators are up in arms now, and some of the senators are really upset. I mean, what's her name from Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee? She is just madder than a hornet. Okay, but the only thing I'm hearing is we got to get what's his name? What's the guy's name that was the special counsel? Jack Smith, was that his name?
Yeah.
We got to get him in for a testify. Well, number one, he's probably going to take the fifth. He's not going to tell you anything, but what good's going to come of that anyway? Even if he testified, he's not going to incriminate himself. And everybody knows what he did, So what is that? What are they really going to do? What can they do? Other than they can refer somebody to the DOJ for lying to Congress. Is that their whole point, to try to get them to lie in front of them?
Isn't that what they're trying to do with Comey? Is say that he lied to one of these committees. So I guess there's that aspect at the federal level, is that maybe the committee is one of the purposes of a committee is to bring people in front of the committee, get some testimony, and then see if they lied to you, and then you can hammer them with lying to Congress.
Like they did with Michael Flynn when he gave a different answer on what it was relative to his 302 about something. I don't remember what it was, but it wasn't a complete 180, but it was just not exactly the same answer he gave during an informal interview. And so they nailed it for lying to the FBI.
Well, but the Democrats pushed that into legal action. But do you think our Republicans are going to push anything into legal action? Do our people have the backbone to do that?
Well, there's a $64,000 question. I just read today that there's a difference of opinion between Bondi and Cash Patel. It didn't go very deep, but it just said that they are clashing and that Bondi is not at this moment thinking about replacing Patel. But she brought in a second co-director with Bongino, who is an attorney general in one of the states. And so the question is, or the speculation, let's put it that way, might be that she's grooming him to take Cash Patel's place as the director. So I don't know. But you see, that's the whole thing about Republicans. They just tend to blast off in their own sphere, in their own orbit, and
Cash Patel's doing a whole different job than Pam Bondi. He provides her with the evidence, and then it's up to her to It's up to her
But
to take the evidence and prosecute somebody. So
well, there was something in this article about something he just did about the Halloween terrorist plot that he overblew it. It turned out to be 5 kids who were gamers, and they had a big old raid on their house and arrested them and booked them and found out that the Pumpkin Day problem was a gamer program. It wasn't a real plot to blow up the castle, and so that but he made a big splash and put himself on national TV, bragging about interfering in this terrible plot that was going to be terrible.
I hadn't heard all that. I heard about the terrorist plot, but I didn't realize
No.
it was actually a gaming thing. So
Yeah,
that's not good.
it was a big bust.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a big bust. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole thing was a bust.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'd fire Cash Patel over that because he's got so much other good stuff.
Well,
going,
that was the kind of the prime example. That wasn't the only issues they got with each other. So,
yeah. Well, the MSM loves that stuff.
Patel doesn't work at the pleasure of Bondi, does he?
No, I don't think so.
I would think. I
mostly
thought the FBI works under the DOJ.
It's part of the DOJ. I think it's part of the DOJ, but I think the director of the FBI, one is a prosecutorial, and the other is an investigative.
Right.
And you usually try to have a little bit of separation between those. I hope that Patel is working for Trump, not Bondi.
Yeah, she could certainly offer her opinion of him to Trump, but I think Trump controls that in the long run. So I mean, he's the one that fired Comey, right? I still have a copy of that. I saved a copy of that letter that he wrote to Comey. I still have that on my computer. So yeah. Okay, guys, we're about the end of the time here, a little bit past. So anyway, thanks for joining me tonight. Appreciate it. Anything going on next week? You guys going to be able to make it?
Should be. It's on my calendar.
See, what are you talking about? November
13th.
What? 13th? Okay.
Yeah, 13th.
Yeah.
Hope 6 plus 7 is 30.
Yeah, have a good Veterans Day, Paul. November 11th, right?
And you too.
Yeah, we have a big special at our Veterans Day salute at our church on November 14th. So we're looking forward to that and honoring all our veterans, which is a good thing. So
my mom will be in the Veteran Day parade here in Prescott with the Wendorf family, who has a business in town. And
I heard you say that this morning. Yeah, good. Yeah. They have a Jeep tour company.
They have a Jeep tour company. Yeah. And so they will have an entry in the Prescott Veterans Day Parade honoring Colonel Wendorf, who was on the B-52 that we talked about.
Yeah. Very good. Well, tell her, bless her heart, and I hope that it's not too cold in the morning.
It's been very nice weather here.
So good. Yeah, we've had beautiful weather too. So and it looks like, keep our fingers crossed, right? Maybe no hurricanes this year.
Yeah,
we're getting down to the nitty gritty now, and so far there's nothing on the horizon. So we're hopeful we can get through 1 year and maybe see our insurance go down $5.
I want to tell you guys a quick Veterans Day story. About 5 years ago, Quail Creek had a big Veterans Day function where they honored the veterans, all this kind of stuff. And the MC comes over to the group of us and says, all you guys that won the Purple Heart, step over here. And I looked at the guy next to me and I said, damn, I didn't even know it was a contest.
Won the Purple Heart. Yeah, that's, I think that's the wrong verb in that sentence.
Well, we used to call it the Viet Cong Marksmanship Award. It was given to the wrong soldier.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Thanks, Ken, and thanks, Paul, and thank Jeff for joining us earlier. And for some reason, I couldn't get Zach online here. He was hanging around there, and I put him off for a little bit, and then I couldn't get him on. So I don't know what was going on. So I'll have to apologize to Zach. But anyway, you guys have a good week. God bless America.
You bet.
And we will see you all next week on 4 Men in America. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another. And by the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that the little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made. And a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better.